Good afternoon, guys. I am Jovi Transporti. I'll be reporting for today. So today we tackle part 2, section 7. It is all about vessels to inspected. So in this section, all will be foreign parts subjected control inspection upon entry part of the Philippines. So they inspected for ensuring compliance of the Maritime Labor Convention. They conduct an inspection of the bases under national law and whether as a vessels appears assured safely of a person vessels of the people environment. So next, section 7 requires for vessels to be imported. We need vessels from foreign subjected to continent inspection shall be considered until on giving practice during the climate weather condition. A proper shelter release should be offered to the required to boarding officer. In cases of extreme weather conditions, the boarding formally to be held in a variant in such until condition would be formidable. Section 9. Requirement from the master of vessels to be inspected. The master of the vessels to be inspected should be provide the quarantine medical officer of the following definite. 1. Maritime Declaration of Health. 2. Duration Exemption Certificate and Passenger and Crew List. Voyage Memo, part of call, clinical record of is treated during the voyage of any. Offer the documents deemed necessary by the quarantine medical officer. FOXTO compliance regulation. The master vessels in the case of an infection disease subject to regulation to prevent to scatter the disease. Section 10. There are 5 kinds of fatigue or clearance issued to be incoming vessels. 1. Free fatigue. So this fatigue is the license to give the shipper to enter the port is to make insurance of free disease. Next, provision fatigue is to give the ship or vessels to improve to make contagious disease. 3. Control free fatigue. A fatigue granted to vessels with a request to enter a U.S. port and begin under certain population condition. 4. Radio fatigue. It is a military vessels to give a message to a state of health to let them know na walay infection disease in the board of the vessels. And lastly, control radio vessels. Granted by the vessels after 48 hours na dapat cases na daghang disease is restricted. Section 11. Immunization Certificate Requirements. So in this section, the passenger it effect in the yellow paper is to show a proof the international certificate recognition against yellow paper. Next is section 12. Extend method quarantine method. Well, make inspection. So the medical team officer should check the column condition before giving the practical vessel, which is the state of the health of the passenger existing or non-existing of the regulation disease, sanitary conditions, validity of the derating type and tonnage of cargo. Section 13. Boarding of vessels from foreign parts placed under quarantine. In this section, case the presence of subjected case or infection disease subject to the regulation, emergency disease or death of on board. Section 14. Requires of vessels before departure. In this section, no vessel shall be allowed to depart from any seaport of the Philippines to foreign destination on such an a vessel has observed all quarantine requirements imposed. Section 15. Embarkation of travelers for international voyage. The director is to provide medical examinations of the passenger is to make the passenger to travel or matanggong siya. Next is section 16. Personnel assigned for inspection. This section is the quarantine inspections of the vessels shall be conducted by the quarantine medical officer. Section 17. Time of vessel. This vessel quarantine inspection in this inspection of vessels, required daily regulations. We will be making 800 to 1,200 hours and 1,300 to 1,700 hours Monday to Friday. What is the inspection of Saturday and Sunday? Dapat bayaran to or to render the service expenses quarantine personnel. Section 18. Vessels to be inspected. All domestic vessels plying domestic. First, with the presence of infection disease, subject to the regulations, emerging disease, public health emergencies of international concern. The ports, there are no quarantine officials. Their vessels will be coordinated with the local health authorities. Section 19. Requirements for vessels to be inspected. In this section, the domestic vessel subject to be inspection shall be considered in quarantine until properly cleared. Such vessels shall fly a yellow flag at its foremast upon entry into harbor. During the harsh weather condition that makes it safe to shelter to the quarantine boarding passenger before to conduct the inspection. Section 20. Requirements of the master vessels to inspected. The master of the vessel shall provide the quarantine medical officer the following accomplished documents. So first, the clinical record of the vessels. So this is the record if the people if niagi og ka-disease. Next, the rating exemption certificate to issue the described national health regulation finding to apply vessels valid in 6 months. Next is passenger of crew list and voyage memo part of call and other documents deemed necessary by the quarantine medical officer. Section 21. The director of quarantine may from time to time prescribe of requirement immunization from certain disease if in his discretion such requirements are essential on account of varying public health condition. Section 22. Extent and method of quarantine. Inspection in this section is to check the following condition. So first is the state of health of the passenger and crew. If kana siya naabay gidadala na disease na nagian na disease before. Next is the existing or non-existing of infection disease or subject regulation emerging disease, public health emergency of international concern. If kani siya is na makatakod na disease, if possible pwede siya ma-spread to sa lain nga tao. Next is sanitary condition on board. This person is limpyado and immunized sa pag-transit sa disease, validity of the writing exemption certificate and state of life on board. If valid ba ang certificate na gidala sa vessels the rating. Next is type and tonnage of cargo. If this cargo is food or product and to follow the capacity of ship kung madaog ra. Section 23. Personnel assigned for inspection in inter-island vessel. In this section shall be conducted by the quarantine medical officer and duly accredited assistant upon recommend to the director quarantine who shall perform such function on annual conductual basis. Section 24. Boarding of domestic vessels placed under quarantine. In this section, in case of notification of presence of suspected of infection disease subjected to regulation, emerging disease of public health emergencies of international concern. First, no person is allowed to embark except quarantine. Next is medical officer duly on his assistant. Next, disembarkation of passenger and crew is not allowed such time that the vessel has been granted a quarantine discharge. So, suspect cases shall be medically evaluated on board and transported of designation referral hospital to isolation. The medical team is to request the suspect and to bring the designated hospital to clear if possible with infection disease. Under remaining passenger and crew of vessel, if they need a ride, should be medically on board vessel. And lastly is the person who nigo gihapon bisag quarantine pa siya without permission is ma-detain undergo quarantine. Requirement of vessel while in port. Section 25. Requirement of vessel while in port. So first is the rat guards mooring connection lines. If the vessel docks alongside the piers, tanang mooring line shall provide the prescribed rat guards less than 1 meter, so fix as to be always at right angle to the line kung naay mo attack. Next is undergo net or gangway plank and ramp. Tanang cargo net must be pulled up kung wala nagamit. The gangway or plank shall be lifted up kung wala sa operation and when lightened throughout the night to prevent the access of the rodents. Next is distance of vessels from the dock. Tanang vessels should defend of at least 1.5 meter from the dock. Lastly, mooring of vessels to another vessels, which is moored to a dock. A vessel such shall the alongside another vessel incorrect to a dock kanang measures para malikayan ang access of rat from the vessels to another vessel. Section 26. Disposal of garbage. No vessel shall be allowed to dump garbage or waste overboard while in harbor. Garbage must be collected in prescribed containers or disposable when a vessel is in the port arrangement must be made for regular removal of garbage by the disposable service according to the environment and health protocol on waste disposal to ensure that it is proper collected according with the existing standard of laws. Section 27. Rat inspection of vessels. The following vessels shall be subjected to rat inspection while in the harbor. First, vessel without the rating exemption of certificate. This certificate is gihatag nga proof sa kanina vessel free for any infection disease and result for negative. And next is inspection by the help also the quarantine medical office and inspection is magbase the degree in which the rat infestation and corresponding certificate nagihatag and there are 3 kinds of the rating certificate. Kani siya na certificate is ihatag na vessel is humana sa fumigation or rat poisoning and trapping which is valid in 6 months from the date of insurance. Next is the rating exemption certificate. Kani nga certificate is ihatag if ever the quarantine medical officer is walay evidence na naay rat and it is valid until 6 months. Lastly is the extension certificate. This certificate must give once valid in 1 month. And there are instructions the next port must allow the quarantine medical officer must conduct inspection and to be able to provide extension certificate upon arrival and departure. Section 28. Fumigation. In this section, the following are subject to the fumigation while on the harbor. First is any vessel's human rodent plague on board. In this situation must be controlled the rodent there attack the vessels in which affect the goods and amenities. Next is the vessels moderate or heavily infested infected with rats or other pests and vermins. Ang mga lugar na balikan sa mga rodents and other than rats and destroy the store goods. Cargo in vessels from plague-infected port which is vulnerable for harbor rats and bees. If the cargo is valid certificate of fumigation support of loading, the fumigation will be waived subject to certificate of the authentically of the certificate. It means the vessel is prone of rats in other rodent if ever the cargo is provide certificate. Nag-disinfect nila sa or is to allowed a certificate that all from the part 2 to 4. Thank you.